We're going to get right into this. So, as background, we are now entering what we are calling the peak 65 zone at the Alliance for Lifetime Income and the Retirement Income Institute, where this year over 4.1 million people are turning age 65. And that number will continue at least through 2027. What that means is about 11,200 people a day on average are turning 65. And we're entering a period where the Social Security trust funds are going to be depleted under current estimates by about 2033 or 2034. So that's 10 years away. And we think about this demographic challenge, the baby boomers are retiring. But when we hit 2030, we will have more people over age 65 than under age 18, which creates not just retirement challenges, but fiscal challenges for this country as well. Longevity is becoming the norm. And we're moving from a society that used to have defined benefit pension plans, where people got a paycheck at work and a paycheck in retirement, to now we're calling this defined contribution or 401k generation, where people are saving, but they hit retirement and they don't have the guidance, the means, or the education necessarily to understand what to do with that asset base and how to turn that into an income stream in retirement. And we're going to talk about that today. So with that as background, Tim, I'm going to turn it to you for sort of some opening thoughts.
Just the opening thoughts for me. First of all, thank you for this opportunity, Jason. I'm so delighted to be with my friend Anne, sharing the stage here with her and you. And just my thoughts are this: is wow, what a great opportunity to serve this segment of the marketplace that is really going into this transitional phase in their life. And we know that every day our financial professionals wake up and say, how do they add value? And we really do value people, and we add value to them so that they can multiply that value to their families and create legacies of a lifetime. And so I am so excited about this because it's so dynamic as a group, Jason. And their wants, needs, desires, challenges change, and we've got to change with it. And it's a really, really exciting opportunity to serve others and our clients.
Thank you. Anne, some opening thoughts?
Sure. And hi. And again, thrilled to be here with both of you. I had this feeling that maybe you asked me to be on a part of this because I'm part of Peak 65. I thought, well, I can be here both as a retirement expert, but also as a person who sort of embodies actually what's happening. And as I think about it, I completely agree with Tim that, I think we need to view this as really an opportunity to serve people and an opportunity to really help our clients through what they haven't been through before. And I just think about my own personal experience starting work in 1984, having a pension plan for a couple of years, that closed, this 401k thing, but not really knowing about 401k, not having auto-enroll, missing out on a bunch of years, suddenly discovering 401ks, and then we get into, okay, people auto-enrolled and target dates and the whole thing. But there is just a huge need out there to help this group of people through this time and changes. And I'm super looking forward to our conversation and talking about the ways that we can really help and serve people much, much better.
Thank you. So I'm gonna stick with you because you offered up that you've been doing this since 1984, and again, you said you had a pension plan, but we're now at the point now where basically less than 10% of people have a pension plan when they retire, and longevity is increasing for most people. Again, we start seeing some of the news reports and saying longevity is declining in the U.S., but a lot of that is surrounded about those what we call like the issues of despair, where people are lonely or they have mental health issues or drug issues. But for people who turn and reach 65, they actually have a better chance of living longer. In fact, according to the Social Security Administration, about 1 out of every 3 65-year-olds today will live to age 90, and 1 out of 7 will live to age 95. So since you've been around since 84, you've seen a lot of changes in the retirement plan market. And I think maybe it's good to sort of give our viewers and listeners sort of a sense of what that looks like and then the challenges ahead.
I want to say, I think there has been a lot of work done, and the market that I focus a lot on, right, is the 401k. Just a lot of good work has been done to try to get people in better positions, right? So yes, I had a pension. I think I had it for 2 years. It's closed. I don't think I'm going to be living off of that. Instead, though, we have 401ks, and let's talk about the people that have them and the people that don't have them. But for the people that have them, there's just been a lot of, what I would call both sort of innovation, but also public policy over the years to get people, I think, in better position. And so we can talk about in 2006, the Pension Protection Act, saying that, the default investment could be a target date. I'm a big believer in, asset allocated products or solutions that can do it for people, but also the auto enroll, the auto escalate, all of the things that, just acknowledge that people are super busy in their lives. And also they're not experts in this. And so, and I talk about this. I have 2 young adult children, actually not so young, but starting out. If my son was not auto enrolled, he would not be saving in his 401k. So I think we can still talk about, okay, this 50% of the private sector that doesn't have access to the 401k, and what are we going to do about all those people? If we put that aside for a minute, because I do think that's a big, huge issue, we get people to save and we get them hopefully invested correctly. But now we're getting to the point where, as you've talked about, Peak 65, all these people retiring. The retirement age really hasn't changed. And how are we going to help people really start to think about how you create that income stream and how you create that paycheck? And as you say, when you get to 65, your chance of living, longer is there. And so how are we going to help all these people? What does that look like? And I do think that's a huge area of focus. I have thoughts on it, but I think it's a place where we need innovation, we need public policy, all working together. So I kind of say we got to focus on that, and we need to focus on all these people that don't have 401ks and ways to save automatically.
So Tim, I kind of want you to play off that, because you've given talks before and you've mentioned a lot about how the market has changed, not just the market as Anne's talking about, but the market for financial advice. And I think it's important we talk about what that looks like as well as we get to the Peak 65 zone.
There's no doubt about it. So, what Anne just said is so spot on. As you think about the retirement age hasn't changed, but the people that we serve have certainly changed, right, Jason? You think about that 65-year-old of today versus yesterday. And so, we absolutely believe deep down in our hearts of what our financial professionals do. We believe in the value of advice and the importance of advice. And, our buddy Steve Gresham wrote an article, and I shared it, Jason, from the main stage with my friend RJ Shook of Forbes last year. Actually, it was 2022. And when you have that wow moment, like, boom. So picture this, there's 500 of the top advisors in the country. And Steve had written an article, and it said, out with the old bull market and in with the new bull market. And it caught everyone's attention. Like, what do you mean the bull market? And it's this value of advice, the bull market for advice. And the bull market for advice is adding protection, just like Anne just said, protected income in retirement, but adding protection to clients' portfolios. Why? Because when we add protection to clients' portfolios, and this idea of the new value of advice, you add protection to the portfolio, what happens? Client satisfaction goes up, right, Jason? And when client satisfaction goes up, 2 things happen. We know this through history, right? Anne talked about 84. I've been in the business since 86, right? 2 things happen. Number 1 is client satisfaction goes up. 2 things. Number 1, assets held away come in. And number 2 is referrals go up. So this new bull market for advice that we're talking about focuses in on being a problem solver, and it's solution oriented. It is taking everything that we do every day. This is planning, establishes the basis for the relationship with our clients and our families and the legacies. And adding protection is mission critical to that. So when we combined protection planning, Peak 65. It's sound practice management to help retain and grow assets, retain and grow relationships, increase referrals. And so I just love this idea of the old bull market, okay, driven by the markets. The new bull market is planning, and when you add protection, client satisfaction goes up. And that's what this Peak 65 is all about, right?
And I think it's important to know, because we keep saying 65, because that has been the sort of anchor in the narrative framework that we've been talking about for decades about retirement. But there's also a new framework for retirement, right? Some people want to retire earlier. Someone never retire and want to keep working well past 65 in their 70s or 80s. And so it's thinking about how that demographic also changes and how we provide that income in retirement, that protected income retirement, so they can have the lifestyle they want, whether it's retirement, whether it's part retirement, whether it's continue working, but it's to have that sense of security. And I want to turn back to you, Anne, because when we start thinking about protected income, most people are going to rely on Social Security. And I'm not going to get into a discussion about Social Security reform and the trust fund depletion, because in some ways it's still going to be, it's not going bankrupt. It'll still be there. I mean, worst case scenario is it pays out 75 or 77% of benefits if Congress does nothing. I think we all think Congress will do something. It just might be at the very, 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 very last minute. But it's going to be the bedrock security for most people. But Social Security was only designed for the average person to replace about 40% of their income in retirement. It is not enough for most people or all people to live off of. We have to have more. And again, Anne, you mentioned this, turning a paycheck into retirement from a paycheck at work. How do you see retirement plan sponsors viewing their responsibility today in this changing market? Because before, again, with a pension, people retired, they got their paycheck in retirement as they got it at work. But now plan sponsors, people are retiring or leaving the workforce, and most of them are being told, you save, now go off and figure it out on your own. So how are plan sponsors taking this responsibility now?
I think we've seen a really big change in that. When first we're talking to plan sponsors, in some ways there was just this view of like, I get somebody to retirement and then kind of let's get them out of the plan, and we don't have any responsibility for what happens after that. That has really changed. We do an annual retirement survey called Read on Retirement. 98% of plan sponsors believe they have some responsibility for helping people, and I hate the word, but in the DQ phrase, and helping people with guaranteed income, and so we know employees want the help, and plan sponsors are really starting to step up and realize that they want to help too. In 2020, I think 60% of plan sponsors said they thought their plan did a pretty good job at it. You fast forward to 2023, and that number's gone down to something like 35%. I think they're realizing they need to do more. And, look, we have so many discussions, and, we can talk about how you take that lump sum and get people to start thinking about it has to be an income stream. We can talk about, adding guaranteed income. Every single plan sponsor we meet with, this is probably the number one topic of, how are they going to do it? Is it going to be guaranteed? Is it going to be non-guaranteed? We're an asset manager. We're thinking about solutions. I know Tim's thinking about solutions. But it is probably the number one topic now for employers and plan sponsors and for their advisors, right? All the people who advise 401ks, they've got to be up on, what should they be recommending to companies? And companies need help with this. They need help thinking about what is right for their employee base, for sure.
I think that's really important. And you mentioned employees are looking to their employers. So survey after survey says that employees trust their employers for financial advice, basically, because they get their health care from the employer usually. They're having a 401k or 403b through the employer. So they're looking to that employer as a trusted source for information. And Tim, we see that employees want this. Like I've done survey work with Michael Finca. We show that employees want this kind of strategy. They want income in retirement. But a lot of financial professionals are resistant to protection strategies. And again, there can be drawdown strategies. There can be guaranteed income. There can be drawdown. But a lot of financial professionals resist this. So What do you think we need to do about this today to change that narrative for those that are still kind of holding out? It's an educational issue. What's the issue that's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, you just nailed it. And Anne said, hang on that 98% factor that she just said is 98% to help that their employees want guaranteed lifetime income. So let's really double click, Jason, on a second on the end consumer, that participant, or those consumers that our financial professionals serve every day. And we focus in, as we all do, is that consultative solutions-based process. And we have to say, what do they really want? What do they really need? What are those end desires? And it's protection. It's they want protect and growth of account values, and just nailed it. They also want protection and growth of income. That's the Alliance for Lifetime Income. That's changing the narrative. And then they also want protection and growth of their legacy. And we know that 73% of all Americans, in the research that we just did, right? We just did our 2024 research. 73% of all Americans believe that one or more economic factors are going to get worse in 2024. And they're coming to us and saying the value of life has never been better. So to answer your question, it's exactly that. Is our financial professionals, right, need to focus and be consistent with education and guidance. And so our research says, and you'll kind of get a kick out of this, Jason, because I know we've had some discussions around this with Stephen, but so how do you do that? And we call this the 3 habits of the most successful financial professionals during times of heightened volatility, when their clients believe that economic uncertainty is going to continue, right? It's the only thing that's really certain. It's going to be a lot of uncertain. So we call it the rule of 8. And it's not, Jason, it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's 3 words, to answer your question, 3 words that end in ATE, right? The financial professional that will be the top focus on these 3 things that end in ATE. Number 1 is their communicate. And we know this. There's a lot of people that communicate, but very few connect. So I am going to connect through my communication and build deeper relationships because I'm a holistic planner. So 1 is communicate. Number 2 is educate. We have to constantly be bringing forward, with consistent discipline, educational ideas that directly impact them and their personal situations, right? So we communicate, and then we educate. And then what do you have to do is you have to activate the plan. You've got to constantly, in that review process, whether you do it quarterly, semi-annual, or annually, you've constantly got to update them and then add different levels of what they want. And what we're finding is that is protection of growth, protect and grow principle, protect and grow income, and protect and grow the things that they love most, which is children's, family, and friends, and so forth, with a legacy. So it's communicate, educate, activate.
So I want to,
Jason, could I jump in for just, because I feel like I could tell a personal anecdote here, just really reinforcing what Tim has said. First of all, I do consider myself pretty schooled in retirement. But, I've had a financial advisor for a long time, really terrific on investments and kind of thing. But, when you're starting to think about when you might retire, maybe it's early, maybe it's later, and what that is going to look like in your life. I actually found, through work, I was talking to somebody else and they said, do you want to go through the planning process with us? And somebody who communicates, and educates and could help show me what maybe my income streams are going to be, maybe how I could use an annuity and get some protected income. I felt much more comfortable. And, and I spend all day, every day thinking about retirement. And I just think the value of this communication, this education, understanding, it isn't just about the investments. It is a lot about these other things, about the life you want to live, how you want to think about your legacy, and just giving some comfort that together we're going to get through this. And obviously protection, I think, is a big part of that. So I say to all advisors, it can't just be about the investments.
And I think that's important. And I want to dovetail and take a little bit of moderator's prerogative to sort of give my sort of anecdote, because, in a previous life, I was the principal deputy commissioner of the Social Security Administration. So obviously that's one of the largest programs in the federal government. And of course, Social Security is an annuity. It is a pooled insurance plan. In fact, the technical title is the Old Age Survivors Insurance Program. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about the role of Social Security, what the benefit formula is, how it works. I'm not happy about the nomenclature. We talk about the normal retirement age, what makes it normal. Talk about the early eligibility age. People think early, why should I be late for benefits? But there are financial consequences to this, right? Someone who's supposed to get $1,000 at their full retirement age would get basically only $700 a month at 62. It's a 30% reduction. And if they wait till age 70 so they can get the effect of the delayed retirement credits, they get $1,240. And that difference between $700 and $1,240 is 77%. I mean, talk about a big increase in your monthly benefit, a 77% increase. And a lot of people don't understand that. And you have some, and this is where we're getting back to sort of the education and advisors. We've sort of seen some reluctance for advisors to tell people to delay claiming Social Security, like to draw down from some of their 401k money to create a bridge to facilitate delayed claiming. They want to keep that assets under management. And I think that, for me in the research, it's kind of so short-sighted, because what we do find is that people who have adequate protected income, Social Security plus something on top, tend to leave the rest of their assets untouched and then stay in the market so it can be managed and grow. And those people end up having more assets when they pass away to leave as a bequest or something else than if they hadn't. And it's how do we then talk to advisors and professionals about the long-term benefits for both them and their clients? And I think that's an important part too when we think about education.
Jason, so just so true. And what Anne just said is I just, we experience that every day, is sitting down with clients that are close to or approaching retirement. And then what you said is it's creating elevated cash flow. And I think what Anne just said is that comfort. In other words, when we create a paycheck that will last a lifetime, it's creating this comfort. And we've done so much work on that here at Lincoln. It's the happiness factor. You create this guaranteed income, and you appreciate the financial professional for doing that. And obviously, Social Security is a piece of guaranteed income, but also cash flow. And what Anne just went through is I think about it is, I'm sitting down with a trusted financial partner, advisor. I'm going through my wants, needs, and desires. And then what's happening at the end of it, the comfort feeling is that they're going to create the things that I love most, which is my pastimes. So how do we get our pastimes to last a lifetime? And that's exactly why what Anne's working on at BlackRock is providing guaranteed sources of income. They're like, we at Lincoln do that. It's what the Alliance does. But at the end of the day, walking away and the things that we love most to do, we're going to be able to say we're going to do it for an extended period of time, because the 65-year-older today isn't the 65-year-older that we remember 30 years ago. They are active. They are energized. They want to go they want to experience things in life, and we can help them with that.
Yeah, Tim, I think you hit on an important point, because a lot of, as an economist and those of us who work in the retirement space, we talk about all these risks, right? We talk about longevity risk, inflation risk, sequence of return risk, but you're hitting on a very important narrative, which is that peace of mind, right? People, like you talk about market risk, they kind of get it, but you say, do you want to make sure you have peace of mind to do the things that you want to do, live the lifestyle you want to have, be able to go on vacation, see your grandkids, whatever the issue is that makes them happy? How do you want to basically make sure that you have happiness? Part of that is getting rid of all those concerns they have about the fluctuations in markets. And again, with protected income strategies, we find that people trade less than in down markets, right? We see way too often people who are nervous about their 401k assets declining, they sell in a down market and miss the upswing. People who have more protected income are less concerned because they know they have enough income coming in to pay their bills and have their lifestyle. They can let the rest of the money manage and weather out storms. And I think that's very important. And Anne is probably a good segue to talk to you now about, what is BlackRock doing to respond responding to all these changes, what are you guys doing in your space right now to actually help the participant weather these storms and look at new opportunities that are availing themselves to the Peak 65 generation?
Sure. So, 6 years ago, our CEO came to me and said, what are we doing? And we need to do more. And we put together a team to really look at how can we help people, through their retirement. And we're an asset manager, right? So in an ideal world, maybe the answer would have been, we can do it all through investments. And we looked initially and we thought a lot about, could you give people hedges? What could you do? And the truth is we looked at this. People want security and people want guarantees. And so as we thought about that, we realized that we needed to work with other players in the industry to come up with something that really works for the participant, right? If I only looked at what BlackRock could do, and we're not an insurance company, we're going to have one solution. But really the right thing, we think, is to combine them. That you need investments and you need protection, and we need to put it together and we need to make it simple for people. And I really remember early on, again, we were having these discussions and what more could we do? And we did talk to, Bill Sharp, the Nobel laureate. And I just stuck in my mind where he said, and he's pretty damn smart. I have investments over here. I have insurance over here. And nobody brings it together for me and nobody makes it simple and easy. And so as we thought about all these sorts of things, I think both of you know, we have created a solution where we've taken investments, we've taken a target date fund, and we've embedded the option for guaranteed income. And so the concept really was, people know target dates, they've gotten used to it, it's already in their 401k. Let's embed an option to annuitize. And so give people the chance to have protected income within the 401k. And we've tried to make it simple. Like that was our guiding principle, is how do we make this easy for people? They are not experts and they're looking for financial security. And so, we're working with the insurance companies, right? We decided what kind of annuity, we decided how much. And so we were trying to take out some of the decision making. Now, an advisor can obviously provide that advice as well. But we were trying to bring it all together and make it easy for participants. And we're really excited about what we're doing. We don't think it's the only solution for people. But we do think you got to bring this all together for somebody. And you have to bring it all together in a way that gives them the financial security that they want. And we all just have to recognize the number one financial fear in the United States is the fear of outliving savings. So how are we helping people? And again, I truly believe this takes leadership from all the players in the industry and coming together to make it easier for people.
So Tim, before I turn to you, because I want you to comment, because I can see you nodding your head and I can see you want to comment on this. Anne just gave me the opportunity to plug a paper that I helped co-author at the Bipartisan Policy Center with Anne and some of her staff. The paper is called Paving the Way to Optimize Retirement Income. You can Google it. It's on the BPC site. I think it's probably also on BlackRock site. But it does show, again, the idea of how important it is when you start thinking about income as the outcome in retirement and the security that provides. And we really need to start hitting that framing more, because as Anne said, people are afraid of running out of money. And if that is their mindset going into retirement, what ends up happening is they don't spend enough, right? So two issues can happen. You can spend too much and run out before you die, or you can not spend enough and have the lifestyle that you should be having. And having protected income strategies on top of Social Security allows for that security. And I think that's very important. Tim?
You just nailed it. Like you think where we started here, and we started about Gresham's paper, right? Old bull, new bull, right? Here's the new bull. And then we talk about your paper, is income truly is the new outcome. And then we also talk about what Ann just said is elevating the client experience, which we talk about all the time. So how do you elevate the client experience to gather assets out of the way, right? To get more referrals. And that's by adding protection to the portfolio. And then Ann just talked about something. She said, it really takes leadership. And so I think about that. And I think about that is, are we demonstrating that leadership to our client base today, to our record keepers today? And the big word here, Jason, is trust, right? Trust. And so when we do a lot of work on the research of becoming that trusted advisor, and it always gets back to me, is the rock theory. I don't know whether you've heard about that, but we can measure trust at the client experience. And rock is an acronym. And the numerator is, are you reliable? Do we do exactly what we said we're going to do? The O is open, honest, and transparency, right? So that's there. Competent is what you just talked about in your white paper. I've read that white paper over and over and over again. Income is the new outcome. It's creating income, consistent cash flow, because the happiness factor in creating pastimes that will last a lifetime, right? So that's the numerator, right? ROC. The denominator is another C. So it's ROCC, rock. And that is, do we care more about the clients we serve than we do ourselves? Right? Reciprocity, the law of reciprocity. And that's caring. And that's what Ann started out too, of saying, listen, our record keepers, right? The business owners care so much about their employees that they want to make sure they have these things. So it ties together, doesn't it? You can see it all starting to tie together. And that is the financial professional of the future. That is elevating the client experience by adding more different things to their portfolio, looking at different things, adding protection, not only of capital, of income, of legacy, but it's also of health. Number one concern is health, right? So that's long-term care. So it's that comprehensive wealth management. It's all in the planning, and it's the trusted advisor of the future, because they've taken the time to educate themselves, therefore to be education of their client, to create this great experiences. So I couldn't agree more. I love your white paper, my man.
Thank you. I think as we have sort of like a final 10 minutes, I want to transition a little bit, because we've talked about the importance of leadership. And I think for the industry, that is huge. And you might want to see a little bit more on that. But I also want to think about what barriers we might see out there that we still need to overcome. And we've had a lot of congressional legislation recently, Secure Act 2.0. In some ways, we've had more legislation passed in the last, several years than we've had in the previous 20. And so this has made it easier in some ways to offer protected income strategies and 401k plans and defined contribution plans in general. But we're still shifting through to see how plan sponsors and employers are going to react to this, how they put things in. So I think a question I have for both of you, and I'll ask Anne you to go first. What additional barriers do you think are out there that, whether we need legislation or not, we need to at least tackle and see where we are?
So with respect to income, right, I think one, I think making these solutions available, right? And again, this comes to my term of needing to work together, to make it with the goal of making it easy for the ultimate consumer, the ultimate client, the ultimate participant. And if I do believe in leadership, and I do believe we've got to work more together to make this easier. So is it on the platforms? How are we educating people? We as an industry can come together in this moment of Peak 65 and really work to make it easier, make it affordable, and to educate people. And, I have people who I feel like they're doing it and they're great partners. And I think there are some who are less of partners. And I actually, to the final C in that equation, whose needs are we putting first? And I think we always have to remember that. So that's around income. But, more broadly, I probably think there are, one place in particular, which to me is around access to savings vehicles. Actually, I'll talk about two things. The first one, access to savings vehicles. In a country where, almost 50% of private sector workers, 57 million Americans, can't save at work. I think we need to work on that. And look, I think Secure and Secure 2.0 did a lot of things to make access easier, right? Savers, the employer tax credits, the simple 401k, lots of things are in there to try to enhance access for sure and make it easier for particularly the small and mid-sized companies. When we think about access and we think about who doesn't have a way to save, it's often disproportionately women and people of color. And I think we've really got to factor that in as well. I do think there is technology that is making it easier and more affordable for companies to offer vehicles. And we've got to lean into that. And I think BlackRock made an investment in an online 401k provider that again can reach these smaller companies and make it easier and simpler. So we're trying to, we don't provide a 401k, but we're trying to partner with people, who do. And the second area, I think, again, away from income, is probably around emergency savings. And again, there's a lot in Secure 2.0 around emergency savings, and we're going to start to see some of that being implemented and seeing where that comes out. But if you think about really wanting to provide people with financial resilience, if 40% of Americans can't afford a $400 emergency, we've got an issue. And the work that we've done around emergency savings shows that if people have that emergency savings, they're actually far more likely to also invest for the long term, right? People can't tie up their money for the long term if they're worried about the short term. And there's a real connection there. I'm not saying it has to happen in the 401k or the sidecar. I just think we as an industry need to be thinking a lot about this connection between short-term and long-term savings and financial resilience and financial wellness in totality.
Now, I think that's a great point, Anne. It's when we do like speaking tours, we often hear, hey, the idea of converting some of your assets into income retirement is a great idea if you have assets to convert into income at retirement. So your point about access is very important, and also savings, because what we found with research again is that this whole idea in some ways of poverty is episodic. That $400 emergency savings, it's not that people are poor necessarily, it's that they have a hiccup along the way. The car breaks down, the water heater breaks down, they lose a job, they have a health shot, they got to take care of a parent, leave their job for a bit. And that then without emergency savings sets them back, and they never recover enough and then start saving for retirement. So I think you're right. We got to think holistically about savings, and that includes retirement as well as emergency savings and healthcare as well. Tim, what are your thoughts about other barriers we might need to tackle or address that we're not thinking about?
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about it. I would go back, to specifically talking around the financial professional, because in our business, Jason, as you know, the industry's having a terrific year in annuities, and you have to ask the question. We already talked about protect and grow capital, protect and grow income, protect and grow your legacy. But what financial professionals are doing is they're positioning these protection products into the portfolio as a piece of the portfolio. It's not so much a product, but it's a solution to create better outcomes. And so I would take everything that Anne just said: simplicity, awareness, access, and from the financial professional point of view, is what would be my advice is, we talked about the 3 habits of the most successful, Jason, but it's 3 things that they do extraordinarily well. Number 1 is they prioritize and sequence their conversations around developing long-term plans, income plans, and preparing for all things around longevity. Number 1. Number 2 is we talked about trust, right? We did talk a lot about trust, but it's that outstanding client experience, and it's providing choice, and it's providing flexibility around the products that they offer around longevity planning. And then the third thing they do is they invest time in themselves to learn more about all this. And that's what I would say. In other words, if I know I've got to elevate communication and I've got to elevate education and I've got to act in there, but we do have to take a step back and really to say, value, what do we value? We value our clients and we value adding value to them. Jason, we have to take the time. Like, this world is moving fast. We have to take the time to educate ourselves on what does that look like in the future, right? And I know that's what Peak 65 is all about. It's about communication to clients and education of clients, but first starts with the advisor, right? And there's some great content that's approved to talk about the future trends that we're going to be faced with, which are very different than the trends that we've experienced in the last 10 to 15 years. So that would be my recommendation, my closing points to the advisor.
So we have like 3 minutes left for just closing thoughts. Let me give mine real quick, and then I'll ask you to go. Then Tim, you can kind of get the last words in. I think what's also important to realize, we talk about Peak 65, is we have some. It's not just the 65 plus year olds or 50 plus year olds we're worried about. It's also the younger generation, because the income challenges that we're seeing in today's retirees or near retirees are going to be the same or even magnified for younger generations. So it's thinking about the fiscal challenges that they're facing as well, and how we design systems, not just for today's retirees, but again, those are coming up. And I think, Anne, you're doing that obviously at BlackRock as well, and the innovation that's happening. And Tim, you've mentioned this too. So I think when we start thinking about it, we have to think again holistically, not just about savings, but also generationally, and how what we're doing impacts the generations to come and how we're going to help them have a secure retirement. So with that, Anne, take 30 seconds to give me last thoughts you might have before we close up.
I think last thoughts, and I've loved this conversation, and I believe asset managers have a role that they can help financial advisors. We're very focused on, what can we provide financial advisors to make their jobs easier with clients. So 100%. But I think I just want to close on, it's a real time for leadership in this industry. And it's a real time for, I believe, all of us to work together to come back to that individual and say, let's make this easier. Let's make it less complex. Let's make it affordable. We're all going to benefit the more that we have people in the United States have real financial security. And, I just think we can all work together to do that.
Tim, last thoughts?
My thoughts would be this: is first of all, thank the listening audience and my two, Anne and Jason. I always love spending time with you. I learned so much, but let's double click on what Anne just said is leadership. Is my definition of leadership is leader is somebody who takes their trusted client to a place that they wouldn't go by themselves. And that's creating better outcomes. And to all the listening audience who are financial professionals and, value of advice is a bull market, but a lot of education here. And it's not what you know that counts. It's what you do with what you know that counts. It's time for action. And it's time to position our clients for success in the future. And we know what they want, as Anne said. They want protection. And they want an advisor that's going to help them provide lifetime income, protection of capital, and protection of their children going forward. So thank you so much, but let's act. Let's go. Let's act.
Let's go.
That is a great way to end it. Anne, Tim, thank you both for your time. It's always a pleasure. I look forward to the next conversation, and to listen to the audience, thank you for tuning in.